Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the video. Let us discuss the Start menu, specifically for Windows 8. Now, of course, right now we can't really see the Windows 8 Start menu because it doesn't really exist. Microsoft did push an update a couple of months back, 8.1, and that's helping. Of course, the 8.1 update one then added new features such as, well, the power at the top if you press the start button and stuff like that. But now it's the next generation, and they're actually going to be adding the start menu back, at least in theory, by August or September time. So here's the thing. I've been very vocal regarding the removal of the start menu, and I don't think I'm the only one. In fact, I bloody well am not the only one. Back in mid-2011, when the Metro start screen was shown off originally, the audience were like, I like some of the stuff that you've done, but why the removal of start? Seriously, why? We like it, we're comfortable, we're good friends with one another. And Microsoft didn't really say much other than it be coming back as a future update, which to me was just very strange, and I think most people felt the same way. Now, some people were starting to become a little bit concerned, and there was indeed cause for that concern. Microsoft had been a bit lackluster with the whole update and the news. We heard it was coming back, but there wasn't really a date and so on. And apparently speaking, there were even rumors that it was going to be pushed all the way back to Windows 9, which, by the way, is going to be released until some point next year. Rumor has it it's going to be spring 2015 for your FYI. Now, I think it's important to realize that the basic core GUI that is in Windows 8 also shares similarities with Windows 2012. When I initially was using 2012, I was just astounded that they didn't include a very basic start menu, at least the option to switch to it. Instead, we still had Metro UI. And honestly speaking, it's not really the ideal way to administer servers. I've gotten somewhat used to it now, and of course, keyboard shortcuts still work. So if you press, start and E, you'll come up Windows Explorer. If you press start and R, it'll come up with run command, and so you could easily get to like CMD and whatever else you need. But at the same time, it just doesn't really feel like it fits in traditional environment. So there are multiple operating systems right now that obviously are trying to take the thunder from Microsoft. Obviously, you've got the Windows side of things, which is Windows 7. Some people are refusing to upgrade, and some people actually refer to it as a downgrade. I'm not really going to get into that argument. Then you've got the Linux crowd, and of course, SteamOS is starting to push into that as well, although it's still in beta and blah blah blah. Then you've got, well, Apple. I don't really think it requires me to tell you much about that. And then you've got iOS, which is slightly different, and Android. Now, those two are constantly being upgraded. However, the problem is rolling out a lot of updates very quickly for an operating system such as that requires system admins typically to do a lot of testing, because in some cases updates could break basically custom-built databases, it can break custom-built front ends and so on. And so the admins actually require some time to do that, and if it comes out very fast, it's sometimes a bit difficult. That's not to say that for home users we particularly care about that stuff, but obviously home users are not the only concern that Microsoft has. The other issue, from Microsoft's perspective, is they're also trying to build an environment which has a lot of similarities, between the phone, tablet, even the Xbox One, and PC. Now, I personally, my own personal opinion, don't really see the appeal to that. I've said this before, and I'll say it until the cows come home. Unless you're using a touchscreen, and I'm not saying that touchscreen PCs aren't going to become more the norm, but for right now, they are certainly in the minority. I don't really think that a GUI which works on a phone or a tablet really has a place on a desktop, just for the most part. And I do think that Microsoft's perceived indecision regarding the Windows 8 start menu, and I'm not saying that they haven't decided, they have said, but for a lot of the public, they just don't see it there. And that's all that really matters. It's like, you can promise something, but unless it appears, you're not going to upgrade. Because if you just hate it, that's pretty much all there is to it. And I know a couple of people who've said, hey, you know what, Windows 8 looks pretty cool. Yeah, what's going on with this menu? No, evil. Must get rid of it as quickly as possible. To Microsoft's credit, I will say the game's compatibility, pretty great. In fact, I've done even Quake 2 and other games. I was just recording Quake 2 gameplay. Runs beautifully on Windows 8. So, compatibility's been pretty sweet as well. Stability, very good as well. And while they get points for that, definitely, there are still issues, of course, which seem to be prevalent. There is some ambiguity whether DirectX 12 is going to work for Windows 8 or what versions of Windows it's going to work for, because obviously if 2015 is going to see the release of DirectX 12, but it's also going to see the release of Windows 9. And there have, of course, been some people who have pointed out, well, you know what? New versions of Windows typically do seem to be tying in with new versions of DirectX, so is that what's going to happen here? Microsoft have somewhat dismissed this, but not 100% clear. Then you've got other issues, like the Windows Marketplace, which Gabe Newell and Valve and other studios have actually said they don't really like too much at all. It's actually kind of funny, because today, one of the tech headlines was that China have basically said, well, we're going to be sticking with Windows XP for a while. And the simple reason behind that is because, well, honestly speaking, they just find it too expensive. They just can't be bothered to cough the money up. And this is the Chinese government that said this. They're just not willing to do that. And obviously, as you're probably aware, Windows XP pretty much reached end of support. In fact, it's no longer supported, which means obviously it's going to become more and more open to virus attacks. And in addition to that as well, what's really strange from a lot of the perspective of Chinese gamers, and this is something that Valve touched on in a Steam Dev conference, they said, well, you know what, the thing about China is they've got really good hardware a lot of the time. They're not running these operating systems on a couple of matchsticks. They've actually got reasonably good hardware. In some cases, they've got DX11 hardware, quad-core processors, and so on. So they've got the hardware there to utilize an updated operating system. But Microsoft can't seem to convince them to do so. And I think a lot of people are, a little bit unsure. Obviously, the fact that Windows XP did die, effectively, although for the perspective of a lot of power users, to be honest, Windows XP has been dead for a while, but obviously the fact that Microsoft effectively pulled the plug, they did pretty much push people to say, hey, you know what, we're sick of the idea of actually getting viruses and so on. What we're going to do is just go out and buy a new PC. So not only did that spare a few pennies for the Dells of the world, but it also helped to push the Windows 8 figures up, because obviously people bought a new OEM system, and of course it's preloaded with, you guessed it, Windows 8. Anyway, I'm getting somewhat off the beaten path here, and the topic's somewhat losing me over the horizon. So, I personally wish that the start menu had never left. I think it should have been an option from the get-go. I don't really understand why they never did it, particularly for server environments, but even for desktop environments. The Metro GUI, it can have some uses, honestly, but I think it should be accessible through a combination of buttons. I'm just throwing it out there, but like Alt and Windows key or whatever, or hold Alt, click the start menu. But I don't think it should just be the default. And I think Microsoft, if they do manage to put it out, mid to late this year, that would be pretty damn sweet. Anyway, I think I've just about spoken enough on this particular topic. I'll see you soon. Take care and bye for now.